The stars had never looked so peaceful to Admiral Kim Tae-ho as he stood on the bridge of his flagship. Through the massive window, he could see the blue and green world of New Seoul spinning slowly below them. Children were playing in the parks down there. Families were having dinner. People were living normal, happy lives because of laws that kept the galaxy safe. 200 years ago, humans had joined the Galactic Consortium with one simple gift. They brought the most important law the galaxy had ever seen: the Universal Accord of Sentient Life. No intelligent species could be wiped out on purpose, ever. It was written in human blood and signed with human tears from the dark days when Earth almost died. Kim remembered the stories his grandfather told him. Stories about the resource wars when humans nearly killed themselves fighting over the last drops of clean water and breathable air. Billions died. Cities turned to ash. The oceans boiled. Humanity looked at the edge of forever and stepped back just in time. That experience taught them something precious. Life was sacred. Intelligence was rare. Once a thinking species died out, nothing could bring them back. The universe became a little darker, a little emptier, forever. "Admiral, we have a message from Captain Lee," said his communication officer. The Busan's Pride found something interesting in the outer spiral. Kim turned away from the window. Captain Lee Dongmin was one of their best explorers. If he found something worth reporting, it was probably important. Put him through. The hologram of Captain Lee appeared in the center of the bridge. He looked tired but excited in the way scientists get when they discover something amazing. "Admiral, we found ruins on a dead world. Old ruins. Really old. Dr. Park thinks they might be 50,000 years old, maybe older." Kim raised an eyebrow. Most species in the galaxy were much younger than that. Only a few ancient races had built anything that could last so long. "What kind of ruins?" "Cities, sir. Beautiful cities made of materials we don't understand. The builders were called the Velothi. Dr. Park found their name carved in crystal monuments all over the planet. They were advanced, Admiral. Maybe more advanced than anyone in the consortium today." That was interesting. Very interesting. Advanced ancient species didn't just disappear without leaving traces in the historical records. What happened to them? Captain Lee's expression changed. The excitement faded, replaced by something darker. "That's the problem, sir. Dr. Park says they didn't die naturally. Someone killed them. All of them." Kim felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. Genocide was the one crime the galaxy could never forgive. It was the crime that had created the Universal Accord in the first place. "Are you sure?" "Dr. Park is certain. The evidence is everywhere. Blast marks on buildings that show they were attacked. Skeletons found in shelters where families tried to hide. Mass graves that were dug in a hurry. Someone came to this world and murdered every living Velothi they could find." Kim closed his eyes. Another species lost forever. Another light snuffed out in the darkness. Do we know who did it? Dr. Park is still working on that. She found some strange metal fragments in the ruins. Pieces of weapons or ships that don't match any known technology. But she thinks she might be able to trace them. "Keep working. I want answers." The hologram faded, leaving Kim alone with his thoughts. 50,000 years was a long time. Whoever had killed the Velothi was probably long dead too. But someone had to know the truth. Someone had to remember. 3 weeks later, Dr. Park Sora stood in the main conference room of the consortium building on Nexus Prime. Around the table sat representatives from dozens of species. Some had scales, some had fur, some looked almost human. All of them were listening to her report. "The evidence is clear," she said, activating a holographic display. "The Velothi were systematically exterminated. Their cities were bombed. Their people were hunted down and killed. Even their cultural sites were destroyed, so nothing would be left of their civilization." Murmurs went around the table. This was exactly the kind of crime the Universal Accord was created to prevent. "The weapon fragments we found contain trace elements that match 3 specific star systems." Dr. Park continued. "Systems that are home to the Raxan Empire, the Threnody Collective, and the Osean Hegemony." The room went very quiet. Those were 3 of the most powerful species in the consortium. 3 species that sat on the ruling council. 3 species that helped write the laws everyone else followed. Ambassador Chen from the Raxan Empire stood up. His insect-like face showed no emotion, but his voice was sharp. "These are serious accusations, Dr. Park. Do you have proof that our species committed these crimes?" Dr. Park nodded and activated another display. It showed detailed analysis of the metal fragments, genetic traces, and weapon signatures. The evidence clearly shows that ships from all three of your civilizations were present during the attack, working together. The Threnody representative, a tall being made of living crystal, spoke in a voice like breaking glass. Even if this is true, it happened 50,000 years ago. Everyone involved is dead. Why does this matter now? Kim stepped forward. He had been quiet during the presentation, but now his voice filled the room. It matters because the Universal Accord has no time limit. Genocide is genocide whether it happened yesterday or 50,000 years ago. These three species built their empires on the bones of the Velothi. They took Velothi technology, Velothi worlds, and Velothi resources. They owe a debt. The Osean representative, a creature that looked like a walking jellyfish, pulsed with angry colors. Humanity thinks it can judge species that were exploring the stars while your people were still living in caves. You forget your place. Kim smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. Our place is to protect the law we gave to the galaxy, the law that protects every species in this room. The three representatives looked at each other. Something passed between them. Some kind of understanding. Ambassador Chen spoke for all of them. The consortium will not pursue this matter. The Velothi are gone. Nothing can bring them back. We must focus on the future, not the past. The law says, Kim started. The law says what we decide it says, the Threnody cut him off. And we decide this case is closed. Kim looked around the room. Other species were watching, but none of them spoke up. They were afraid. Afraid of the three most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. Dr. Park gathered her evidence files. Captain Lee shut off his recording equipment. Kim straightened his uniform. Then humanity will remember the Velothi, he said quietly. Someone should. As they left the building, Kim didn't know that hidden sensors were recording every word. He didn't know that the three species were already planning their response. He didn't know that by defending the dead, he had just signed the death warrant for millions of the living. In the darkness between stars, ships were already beginning to move. The attack came at 3 a.m, ship time. Colonel Han Ji-woo was drinking coffee in his office on New Jeju when the alarm started screaming. Outside his window, he could see the farms that fed 3 billion people across human space. Endless fields of golden wheat moved like waves in the artificial breeze. Then the sky caught fire. Ships dropped out of hyperspace like falling stars. Hundreds of them. Ships with the twisted metal hulls of the Raxan Empire, the crystal spines of the Threnody Collective, and the flowing liquid designs of the Osean hegemony. They had come together, working as one just like they had 50,000 years ago. Han ran to the communication room. His soldiers were already at their posts, but their faces were white with fear. "Get me Admiral Kim," he shouted over the noise of the alarms. "Sir, we can't reach the Admiral. We can't reach anyone. They're jamming all communications across the sector." On the screens around the room, Han could see the enemy ships moving into position. They weren't targeting the military bases. They weren't going after the defense stations or the weapon platforms. They were aiming at the farms, at the cities, at the schools and hospitals where children slept. "Sir," one of his officers called out. "They're broadcasting something." The main screen flickered and a Raxan face appeared. Its insect eyes looked directly at the camera. "People of humanity," it said in perfect human language. "Your species has become a problem. You ask too many questions about the past. You make too many demands about justice. Tonight we solve the problem." Han felt his blood turn to ice. "You gave the galaxy a law about protecting intelligent life," the Raxan continued. "But you forgot something important. Laws only protect those who are strong enough to enforce them. You are not strong enough." The first bombs fell like burning rain. Han watched through his office window as the wheat fields exploded into fire. The enemy wasn't using normal weapons. These were biological bombs that ate through everything they touched. The golden wheat turned black, then dissolved into poisonous smoke that rose toward the sky. Similar attacks were happening across 12 human worlds at the same time. On the mining colony of Titan's Rest, Commander Yoon Hee-jin watched her orbital platforms burn as enemy ships cut through her defenses like they weren't even there. Her small patrol craft tried to protect the transport ships carrying fleeing families, but the enemy had too many vessels. "All stations, this is Commander Yoon," she said into her radio as her ship shook under enemy fire. "We can't stop them. Save who you can and run." A Threnody ship made of living crystal that pulsed with deadly light moved toward a transport full of children. Yoon turned her patrol craft toward it and pushed her engines to maximum speed. "Commander, what are you doing?" her weapons officer asked. "Buying time," she said, and rammed her ship into the crystal hull. The explosion lit up the darkness for a few seconds. The transport ship escaped. Commander Yoon did not. On the orbital station above New Busan, engineer Choi Minho was trapped as the enemy destroyed the shipyards where humanity's newest ships were being built. Through the station's windows, he could see years of work burning in space. Ships that were supposed to explore new worlds, to carry families to distant stars, to defend human colonies. All of it was being turned into scrap metal and smoke. The station shook as enemy weapons hit it. Choi ran through the corridors trying to reach the escape pods, but explosions kept blocking his path. Other station workers were running too, but there weren't enough escape pods for everyone. He found a group of young engineers hiding in a supply room. They looked at him with frightened eyes. "What do we do, sir?" one of them asked. Choi thought about his daughter back on Earth. She was only 7 years old. Would she ever see him again? "We survive," he said, "and we remember who did this to us." Admiral Kim was on the bridge of his flagship when the reports started coming in. At first they were just broken messages. Ships calling for help, colonies under attack, defense stations going dark. Then the full picture became clear, and Kim felt something break inside his chest. 40 million people dead in 6 hours. New Jeju was a burning wasteland. Titan's Rest was cracked in half by gravity bombs. The orbital shipyards above New Busan were floating debris. 3 other colonies had been hit with biological weapons that would make them uninhabitable for 100 years. The enemy fleets were using weapons that were banned by every law of war. Diseases that only killed humans, machines that ate through metal and flesh equally, bombs that broke planets apart from the inside. They weren't just trying to win a battle. They were trying to destroy humanity so completely that nothing would be left. No ships to fight back with, no colonies to rebuild from, no people to remember what had been lost. "Admiral," his communication officer said quietly, "we're getting a transmission from the 3 enemy fleets. They want to talk." Kim looked at the screen showing the dead worlds, the burning cities, the ships that would never fly again. Put them through. The screen divided into 3 parts, a Raxan face, a Threnody crystal form, and an Osean that pulsed with satisfied colors. "Admiral Kim," the Raxan spoke first, "we hope you understand now. This is what happens when a young species tries to judge its elders. Your people asked for justice. We are giving you justice." The Threnodi's voice was like breaking glass. The Velathi thought they were safe too. They thought their technology and their peaceful ways would protect them. They were wrong. Just like you are wrong. The Osean pulsed brighter. "We have been ruling this galaxy since before your son was born." The Velathi challenged that rule. Now you challenge it. Both challenges end the same way. Kim stood up slowly. Around him, his bridge crew was listening. Behind him, the stars watched through the windows. "You want to teach us that mercy is weakness," he said. His voice was calm, but something terrible was growing behind his eyes. "You want to show us that the strong can do whatever they want to the weak." "Exactly," the Raxan said. Kim smiled, but it was the smile of a predator showing its teeth. "Thank you," he said. "You have just reminded us why our ancestors were afraid of the dark. You have reminded us what we really are underneath all the civilization and laws and treaties." He leaned forward, and when he spoke again, his voice was as cold as the space between stars. "We are the species that survived the death of our homeworld. We are the children of a planet that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We learned to hunt in packs, to use tools to turn everything around us into weapons. We conquered our own world so completely that we had to leave it to find new challenges. The enemy faces were starting to look less confident. You broke the only law we ever cared about," Kim continued. "You killed 40 million of our people. You taught us that mercy is just another word for stupidity. Thank you for the lesson. Class is now in session." He gestured to his weapons officer. "Send a message to every human ship, every human colony, every human citizen," he said. "The Universal Accord is dead. The galaxy wanted to know what humans look like when we stop pretending to be civilized. They are about to find out." 3 months after the attack, humanity had stopped crying. General Shin Jae-sung stood in the war room deep below Earth's surface, surrounded by screens showing star maps and enemy positions. Before the attack, he had been a military historian who wrote boring papers about ancient battles. Now he was the man responsible for planning the extinction of 3 entire species. The change surprised him. It surprised everyone. "General, the Ghost Fleet is ready for deployment," Captain Bei Sujin reported. She looked different now. They all looked different. The soft edges that came from living in peaceful times had been burned away, leaving something harder behind. Captain Bei had lost her entire family on New Jeju, her parents, her brother, her 2 young nieces. She had watched the recordings of their final moments, listened to their last words as the biological weapons dissolved their bodies from the inside out. She never talked about it. None of them talked about their losses anymore. They just used the pain like fuel for a fire that would burn across the galaxy. "Show me the targets," Shin said. The main screen lit up with images of Raxan industrial worlds, peaceful planets where billions of insects worked in vast hives, building ships and weapons for their empire, cities that had never seen war, children who had never heard a weapon fired in anger. 6 months ago, Shin would have hesitated. He would have worried about innocent lives. Now he looked at the targets and felt nothing but cold calculation. "The Raxan think their industrial worlds are safe because they're deep inside their own territory," he said. "They think we can't reach them without fighting through their entire fleet." "They're wrong." Dr. Limna Young stepped forward. She had been a peaceful researcher before the attack, working on ways to help different species live together better. Now she designed weapons that could kill entire planets. "The Reaper Protocol is ready," she said. "We've studied Raxan biology for 200 years. We know exactly how their bodies work, how their minds connect to each other through pheromones, how their hive structure depends on the signals she activated. Another display showing molecular diagrams that looked like blueprints for nightmares. These nanobots will spread through their atmosphere like a virus. But they won't kill the Raxan. They'll do something worse. They'll make every Raxan on the planet experience the last moments of every human who died in the attacks. All 40 million deaths at the same time." Shin nodded. It was cruel. It was horrible. It was exactly what they deserved. "And the Threnody worlds? We're using their own living crystal technology against them," Dr. Lim continued. "The crystals that make up their bodies are connected to their planet's core. We've developed a harmonic frequency that will make every crystal on their worlds resonate at the same time. It won't kill them, but it will drive them insane with pain. The Osean, they pride themselves on being the smartest species in the galaxy. Their entire civilization depends on quantum computers that are more advanced than anything we've ever built. We're going to introduce a virus into their network. Every calculation they try to make will show them images of the humans they murdered. Every data search will play recordings of our people's final words. Their own technology will become a torture device." Captain Bei smiled for the first time in months. It was not a nice smile. "When do we start?" she asked. "Tonight," Shin said. "Captain, take your Ghost Fleet to Raxan space. Hit their industrial worlds first. Make it look like accidents, equipment failures, reactor explosions, natural disasters. Let them wonder what's happening before they realize they're under attack." The Ghost Fleet was unlike anything humanity had ever built before. The ships were black as space itself, coated with materials that bent light around them. They moved silently, without the energy signatures that would show up on enemy sensors. They were invisible, untouchable, and completely without mercy. Captain Bei's ship Silent Revenge led 12 other vessels through hyperspace toward Raxan territory. They emerged far from any patrol routes in the empty space between stars where no one would see them coming. The first target was an industrial world called Hive Prime 7. Billions of Raxan workers lived there in massive underground cities, building the weapons their empire used to terrorize the galaxy. It was protected by orbital platforms and patrol ships, but all the defenses were designed to stop attacks that came from outside the system. None of them were watching for enemies that were already inside. Silent Revenge drifted toward the planet like a piece of cosmic debris. Bei's crew had practiced this mission 100 times. They knew exactly where to place the devices that would look like industrial accidents. The first explosion happened in a chemical plant near the planet's north pole. The blast sent poisonous clouds across 3 hive cities. Emergency systems activated, trying to contain the damage, but more explosions followed. Power plants overloaded, factories caught fire, transport systems collapsed. To the Raxan, it looked like the worst industrial disaster in their history. They didn't know that human ships were already moving toward their next target. While Captain Bay's fleet struck at Raxan worlds, other human forces were moving against the Threnodi and Ossian. They didn't attack military targets. They didn't try to fight fair battles against enemy fleets. Instead, they went after everything that made their enemies' civilizations possible. Threnodi communication networks went dark as human hackers infiltrated their crystal matrices. Ossian research stations suffered mysterious malfunctions that corrupted years of scientific data. Raxan trade routes became dangerous as cargo ships started disappearing without distress calls. The enemy species tried to respond, but they couldn't fight an opponent they couldn't see. Human ships appeared out of nowhere, struck their targets, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Sometimes the attacks were physical, sometimes they were digital, sometimes they were psychological warfare that left survivors too terrified to function. Admiral Kim watched the reports from his flagship. Every successful strike was revenge for the 40 million humans who had died. But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. Admiral, his intelligence officer reported, the enemy fleets are pulling back to defend their home systems. They're abandoning their forward positions. Good, Kim said. They're starting to understand that they're not the hunters anymore. They're the prey. On a Raxan command ship, Admiral Zek Prime looked at reports of attacks across their territory. The strange industrial accidents were happening too often to be natural. The pattern was too precise. Someone was targeting their empire with surgical strikes that left no evidence behind. Send a message to the Threnodi and Ossian fleets, he ordered. Ask if they're experiencing similar problems. The answer came back quickly. All three species were under attack by an invisible enemy that struck without warning and left no traces. An enemy that seemed to know exactly where to hit to cause maximum damage. It's the humans, Admiral Zek Prime realized. But this is impossible. We destroyed their fleets. We burned their worlds. How can they be attacking us? His communication officer's insect face showed confusion. Perhaps some human ships escaped our initial attack. No, Zek Prime said, and his voice carried the weight of terrible understanding. We didn't destroy their military. We just made them angry, and now we're learning what angry humans can do when they stop following the rules. In the dark between stars, more human ships were moving toward their targets, ships filled with people who had lost everything and had nothing left to lose except their capacity for creative destruction. The galaxy was about to learn why Earth's dominant species had climbed to the top of the food chain on a world where everything wanted to kill them. The lesson was going to be written in blood, across 1,000 burning worlds. 18 months after the Night of Burning Worlds, the galaxy had learned to fear the dark. Admiral Kwon Sung-min stood on the bridge of the Terra's Wrath, watching Raxan Hive World Prime burn in the distance. The planet that had been the heart of the insect empire for 10,000 years was now a ball of fire and screaming metal. Its orbital defenses floated as twisted wreckage. Its proud fleets had been turned into cosmic dust. This was not the same humanity that had begged for justice in the consortium chambers. This was something else. Something that had crawled out of Earth's darkest history and put on a uniform. Admiral, we're receiving surrender signals from the remaining Raxan ships, his communication officer reported. Kwon didn't even look at the screens. Ignore them, the officer hesitated. Sir, the Universal Accords state that we must accept surrender. The Universal Accords died with our 40 million people, Kwon said quietly. The Raxan chose to teach us that mercy is weakness. We learned the lesson well. The human fleet moved like a pack of wolves around the dying planet. Every ship had been rebuilt from the ground up, designed not for exploration or defense but for one purpose: ending civilizations. Their hulls were black as the void between stars. Their weapons made no sound when they fired, just bright flashes that erased enemy ships from existence. On the planet's surface, Raxan civilians huddled in their underground hives as human dropships landed like falling stars. But the soldiers who emerged were not there to occupy territory or capture prisoners. They were there to deliver Dr. Seo Woo-jin's latest creation. Dr. Seo had once been a gentle scientist who studied alien psychology to help species understand each other better. Now she was the head of the Thanatos division, and she had become very good at understanding exactly how to break alien minds. The devices her soldiers carried looked like simple metal boxes, but inside each one was a nightmare made real. Nanobots programmed with the recorded brain patterns of every human who had died in the original attack. When released into the Raxan hive networks, they would force every insect on the planet to experience those deaths. Not just see them or hear about them, but actually feel them as if they were happening to their own bodies. All 40 million deaths. Over and over. Forever. Colonel Jian Yunseo led the ground assault on Hive Complex Alpha. She moved through the corridors like a ghost, her augmented body enhanced with technology stolen from the Raxan's own research labs. Her soldiers followed behind her, their faces hidden behind masks that made them look like death itself. They found the first group of Raxan civilians in a shelter deep underground. Families huddled together, their insect eyes wide with terror. Children pressed against their parents, trying to hide from the humans who had come to judge them. In the old days, Jean might have felt pity. She might have remembered that these civilians had nothing to do with the attack on human worlds, but the old days had died with her daughter on New Jeju. "Deploy the Nightmare Protocol," she ordered. Her soldiers placed the metal boxes throughout the hive complex. When activated, they would connect to the pheromone networks that all Raxan used to communicate. Every insect on the planet would become a receiver for humanity's final message. The boxes began to hum. The Raxans started to scream, but not just with their voices. They screamed with every chemical signal their bodies could produce. They screamed with the very molecules that made up their minds. And because they were connected to each other through biological networks, every scream was shared by every member of their species. The effect spread across the planet like a plague. Millions of Raxan suddenly experienced what it felt like to die by biological weapon, to watch their children dissolve in acid rain, to suffocate as poison gas filled their lungs, to burn alive as orbital bombardment turned cities into glass. They felt it all, every moment of agony that humanity had endured. And they understood finally what they had done. On Threnody Prime, the situation was different but equally terrible. The crystal beings that made up the Threnody Collective had always been proud of their connection to their homeworld. Their bodies were made of living crystal that resonated with the planet's core, creating a harmony that they believed made them superior to other species. Human scientists had studied that harmony for months, learning its frequencies, understanding its patterns. Then they had built weapons that could turn harmony into discord. The resonance bombs fell on Threnody cities like deadly music. When they exploded, they didn't destroy buildings or kill civilians directly. Instead, they sent waves through the planet's crystal matrix that turned every Threnody's body into an instrument of torture. The crystals that made up their skin began to vibrate at frequencies that caused impossible pain. The resonance that had once connected them to their world now connected them to agony. And because all Threnody shared sensations through their crystal network, every individual felt the suffering of their entire species. They tried to disconnect from the network, but the human weapons had been designed to prevent that. They tried to leave their homeworld, but the resonance followed them through space, carried by the crystal ships they traveled in. There was no escape from the pain that humans had given them as a gift. The Osean hegemony faced a different kind of destruction. Their entire civilization was built on quantum computers that could process information faster than any other technology in the galaxy. They had used this advantage to manipulate galactic politics for millennia, always staying one step ahead of other species through superior calculation and prediction. Human hackers had spent months studying Osean technology, learning how their quantum networks functioned. Then they had created the most sophisticated computer virus in galactic history. It didn't destroy data or crash systems. Instead, it turned every Osean computer into a window into hell. Every calculation now came with attached files showing dead human children. Every database search returned images of burning colonies. Every communication included audio recordings of families calling for help as biological weapons ate through their bodies. The virus was impossible to remove because it existed in quantum states that the Osean couldn't access without destroying their own technology. They could either live with the constant reminders of their crimes, or they could shut down the computers that made their civilization possible. Most chose to go insane instead. Dr. SEO watched the reports from her laboratory on Earth. 3 species, each one experiencing a customized nightmare designed specifically for their biology and psychology. It was her masterpiece, a work of art painted in suffering and regret. Dr. CO, her assistant said quietly, "We're receiving communication requests from all 3 enemy governments. They want to negotiate. After 18 months of silence, now they want to talk, she replied. How interesting. What are they offering? Complete surrender, reparations, full confession of their crimes against the Velothi. Whatever we want, Dr. Seo turned away from her screens. Through the laboratory window, she could see the lights of the rebuilt city. New buildings rising from the ashes of the old. New families growing in the soil fertilized by ancient grief. Tell them we'll consider their offer, she said. But first, they need to answer one question. What question? She smiled, but it was the smile of a teacher who was about to give a very difficult test. Ask them if they remember the Velothi children who died 50,000 years ago. Ask them if they remember the families who were burned alive just for existing. Ask them if they think their own children deserve better treatment than the children they murdered. The assistant looked confused. What if they say yes? Then they'll learn that some lessons can only be taught through experience. The Velothi children never had the chance to grow up. Why should theirs? The final message came from the 3 dying empires at the same time. It was broadcast on every frequency, sent to every human ship, transmitted to every surviving human colony. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of desperation. Stop, please stop. We surrender. Admiral Kim Tae-ho read the message on the bridge of his flagship while watching Osean Prime burn in the distance. The planet that had once been the intellectual center of the galaxy was now a world of madness, where crystal towers pulsed with the screams of the insane. 2 years of war had changed everything. The galaxy that had once ignored humanity's pleas for justice now watched in terror as the human fleets moved from system to system like a plague of metal and fire. Admiral, his communication officer said, they're asking for terms. Kim laughed, but there was no humor in it. Terms they want to negotiate. After what they did to us, they think they can bargain their way out of consequences. He activated the communication array and sent his reply to the 3 enemy governments. You had your chance to negotiate. You had 200 years to confess your crimes against the Velothi. You had months to accept responsibility for murdering 40 million humans. You chose war instead. Now you get to see what war really means. The reply came quickly, transmitted from 3 different locations but speaking with one voice of shared panic. We confess. We admit we killed the Velothi. We admit we broke the Universal Accord. We will pay any price, accept any punishment. Just stop the killing. Kim looked around his bridge. His officers were watching him, waiting for orders. These people had lost everything in the first attack. Their families, their homes, their faith in galactic civilization. All they had left was the need for justice. Or was it revenge? After 2 years of systematic destruction, Kim sometimes couldn't tell the difference anymore. What price? He asked the enemy fleets. What could you possibly offer that would balance the scales? Anything, technology, resources, territory, we will disarm our fleets. We will dismantle our governments. We will accept human oversight of our worlds. Kim shook his head. Not enough. Then what do you want? The question hung in space between the human and alien fleets. What did they want? What would satisfy the rage that had been burning in human hearts for 2 years? Before Kim could answer, another message arrived. This one was from Dr. Park Sora, transmitting from a research station in neutral space. Admiral Kim, I need to speak with you. I've found something about the Velothi. Something important. Kim hesitated. Dr. Park had been working on Velothi archaeology since the beginning. If she had found something new, it might be significant. Put her through. Dr. Park's hologram appeared on the bridge. She looked older, worn down by years of studying ancient genocide. But her eyes were bright with discovery. Admiral, I've been analyzing the final Velothi records, the ones we found in their deepest archives. I know why the 3 empires really killed them. We already know why, Kim said. They wanted Velothi territory and technology. No, Dr. Park said. That was just part of it. The real reason was deeper. The Velothi had discovered something. A way to connect all intelligent species through quantum resonance. A technology that would have made war impossible because every thinking being would feel the pain of every other thinking being. Kim frowned. What are you saying? The Velothi were going to end violence in the galaxy forever. Not through laws or treaties, but through empathy, literally making it impossible for one species to hurt another without hurting themselves. The implications hit Kim like a physical blow. The 3 empires hadn't just committed genocide for territory or resources. They had killed the Velothi to preserve their right to commit violence. Admiral, Dr. Park continued, I've rebuilt their technology. I know how it works. We could finish what the Velothi started. We could create a galaxy where no one can hurt anyone else without feeling that pain themselves. Kim stared at the hologram. And you're telling me this now? After 2 years of war? Because I wanted you to have a choice, Dr. Park said quietly. We can continue down this path of revenge until we're no better than the species we're fighting. Or we can honor the Velothi by completing their work. Before Kim could respond, new alarms started sounding throughout the human fleet. Enemy contacts were appearing on sensors across multiple star systems. Admiral, his tactical officer shouted. The three empires have activated some kind of doomsday weapon. They're threatening to destroy 12 star systems if we don't withdraw immediately. Kim's blood turned cold. 12 star systems meant billions of innocent lives. Species that had nothing to do with the ancient Velothi genocide or the attack on humanity. The communication array crackled with a new message. From the enemy fleets, humans of Earth, the combined voices of the three empires spoke. You have proven your point. You have shown the galaxy what happens to those who cross you. But if you continue this war, we will take entire civilizations with us into death. 12 systems will burn. Billions will die. Is your revenge worth that price? Kim closed his eyes. This was the ultimate test. The final question that would define what humanity became in the aftermath of their greatest tragedy. Dr. Park's voice came through the communication system one more time. Admiral, the Velothi technology is ready. We can activate it from here. Every intelligent being in the galaxy will be connected. The three empires won't be able to detonate their weapons without feeling the deaths of everyone they kill, but you have to decide now. Kim opened his eyes and looked at his bridge crew, these people who had followed him through 2 years of the darkest war in galactic history. They were waiting for his decision. Dr. Park, he said slowly, activate the Velothi network. Sir? His weapons officer asked. What about the doomsday weapons? The three empires spent 50,000 years thinking they could commit violence without consequences, Kim replied. Today they learn what consequences really mean. Across the galaxy, something ancient and beautiful came to life. Quantum resonance waves spread from Dr. Park's research station, connecting every thinking mind to every other thinking mind. Not completely, not enough to steal individuality, but enough to share the most basic emotions: pain, fear, love, the will to survive. On the Raxan command ships, officers suddenly felt the terror of every civilian on the worlds they were threatening to destroy. On Threnody vessels, crystal beings experienced the love that parents felt for children who would die in the explosions. On Osean ships, quantum computers calculated the exact amount of suffering that would be created by their weapons, and they couldn't do it. The doomsday weapons powered down as their operators found themselves unable to cause pain they would have to experience themselves. Kim broadcast one final message to the three empires. This is humanity's gift to the galaxy, he said. Not revenge, not destruction, empathy. The Velothi dreamed of a universe where violence was impossible because everyone would feel the consequences of their actions. Today that dream becomes reality. He paused, looking out at the stars that no longer seemed as cold as they once had. The war is over, not because we destroyed you, but because we finished what the Velothi started. Violence is no longer possible without consequence. Murder is no longer possible without feeling the victim's pain. Genocide is no longer possible without experiencing the death of everyone you kill. Years later, Dr. Park stood in a garden on New Earth, where monuments honored both human victims and the ancient Velothi. A young student approached her, someone who had grown up in the new galaxy where empathy was as real as gravity. Dr. Park, the student asked, was Admiral Kim right to activate the network? Some people say we should have just destroyed our enemies instead. Dr. Park looked up at the stars, where ships from dozens of species now traveled together in peace not because they were forced to, but because they literally couldn't hurt each other without hurting themselves. The galaxy forgot that justice and revenge are different things, she said. Justice heals. Revenge just creates more pain. Admiral Kim chose justice even when revenge would have been easier. The student nodded but looked thoughtful. But what if someone finds a way around the network? What if they figure out how to hurt people without feeling it themselves? Dr. Park smiled, but it was a smile with teeth in it. Then they'll discover that while humanity chose justice over revenge, we never forgot how to be very, very good at revenge when necessary. The network makes violence impossible for most people. But humans aren't most people. We're the species that survived a death world and reached for the stars. If someone threatens the peace we built, they'll learn why our ancestors were apex predators. She looked back at the monuments, where the names of the dead were carved in stone that would last forever. The law of the stars isn't just words, she said. It's a promise. Break it and discover what promises mean to a species that never forgets and never forgives.